5:29. We can get started a minute early because I know we have inclement weather coming in, so. I will call to order the committee, the whole meeting at, oh, now it's 5:30, perfect. So anything for the good of the order to get started? Review of the regular meeting agenda. I'm guessing the only thing would be, we're gonna discuss anyhow, one of the things on there, which is the economic development items. So if there's nothing else on the other items, then we'll just skip over that. Okay, the first item is Agenda Bill 2403, Code Enforcement Officer Review Classification with City Administrator.
Thank you. Good evening, council, and members of the public and staff. So I don't have a PowerPoint presentation, it's just the initial discussion about a classification change that we would like to make. We had in the agenda bill kind of spelled them all out. We had in the budget 5 which we found we can't really find a niche for it. It was meant to cover a potential retirement, which has not occurred. We will have some staff savings in the police department, and we are also in the midst of recruiting a full-time police officer. A part-time police officer is a little hard to fill as a position. So talking to the leadership team, the directors, we're bringing to council the possibility and request to reclassify that 0.5 police officer to a code enforcement officer instead. The job description is written to be a civil code enforcement officer. It's not a criminal police officer or a criminal code enforcement, which would require a police officer who would have been in the academy. This is really meant to do things like crime code enforcement, land use regulations, public thieves, like public works. So really around our civilian code. It would be in the community development officer attached to the building official, because most of our code enforcement issues come under the building official and community development. As I wrote the classification in your packet, I pulled similar code enforcement positions from about 5 or 6 different jurisdictions, which is the best of them. Also spoke to Daniel, our city attorney, about how to draft it to get what we need. At this point, we're only asking to redeploy those assets in a part-time position. We really don't know how much code enforcement we have, but we certainly feel like with the increase that we've seen in code enforcement requests, that this is a needed change. Right now, we don't have code enforcement personnel. We are complaint-based only, so we don't do a lot of active code enforcement, meaning where we go out and look for problems. We respond to complaints. We would like to be a little more on the active side with having a code enforcement officer. So that's the request. I've put in a draft classification and along with the sample to answer any questions.
Any questions? Councilmember Schaefer.
Yes, I did look at the data you provided. Thank you very much. And I guess my one question is, this is, you know, there is a small amount of money savings. That's correct, not a lot, but a little bit.
So the way I classify the position, so I took the comparable jurisdictions, both from a classification perspective, like so the jurisdictions that were near us had code enforcement. I used their language, but then I also looked at the salary paid for Marysville, Issaquah, and some of our surrounding locations that do civilian code enforcement. When you classify that on our salary table and compare it to the money that was budgeted for the police officer, they end up being roughly the same. The per hour is slightly higher than for the code enforcement officer, but with the add to pays and the police contract, it actually comes out to slightly less, if that makes sense. So there's overtime premium and some of the premiums that are attached to the police department would not be attached to this position. It would be a non-represented, non-union position. So It ends up being about,
Right, right. So the primary motivation then is really find somebody who can hire for this position. Correct, since it's difficult and understandably why people hire a regular police officer.
right, so this isn't, bringing this here tonight is not really a theoretical consideration. Should we have a code enforcement officer in the city? There is a body of work that is not, getting attended to as much as we would like. And if we were, for instance, to hire tomorrow a code enforcement officer, there'd be a set of complaints for them to work on.
Mhm.
That we get to, but it's on top of the work that the community development team is doing on comp plan and all that other stuff. I'm gonna turn it over to Director Thomas too, if you have a full thoughts on the need for this.
Yeah, and we've been working our way towards needing a code enforcement position within the city. And with the workload that we have this year, it has become more evident that we're gonna have to make choices in between code enforcement and policy work. And obviously, policy work is mandated as well. And we've had a couple of really large cases, probably 3 or 4 really large cases that take 1 or 2 years to go through. And then, you know, probably a half dozen a month on top of that. And it is a lot of policy and paperwork. There's a lot of process procedures. And so, we had talked with, kind of internally first, kind of directors, and obviously with Cynthia. And we felt pretty strongly and passionately this is probably the time to start that process a little bit earlier than I think we initially kind of, you know, hoped for. But we are excited. We've done a lot of research. Cynthia's looked at multiple cities. Every city's a little bit different. That is for sure. But we're bringing in forward just kind of a discussion and a job description. And it'll take us a little while to get through it, along with kind of that ancillary work, which is to update the code enforcement policy as well. And we'll start on here in a few months.
Other Councilmember Isaacson?
Yeah, maybe I just a comment that maybe rather clarity that some of the requirements of police officers needed for law enforcement. And we can't get that, but now we're gonna try to back into a position for a code enforcement officer that we're saying that we've been needing for a while. Or it's becoming more of a requirement. So, you know, I kind of don't like that approach personally. If we need a police officer, let's go get a police officer. And then go about a code enforcement officer another time, because I personally like the idea, and a lot of people in our community like the idea that we enforce code by reaction and do inspections when we build something or change something, not having someone go out and find something. You know, I mean, that's my impression of what we're saying, more active. Well, it's kind of the word, for police provide clarity, because you're being more active as opposed to reactive. So I'm completely opposed to the potential of giving the public the impression that we're gonna hire someone to go out and start looking around for those problems, and especially on private or even business. I'd rather continue down the path of how we get a police officer, so that's what the requirement is. That we understand, we have 0.5 for a police officer, not the building.
We are still filling our open police department position. This 0.5 has never been hired.
There was a requirement. Is a requirement of police officer of code enforcement from the beginning.
I don't think 0.5 was required. I don't think the business case was made for it personally. And it ended up in the budget as an anticipated over coverage for a non-vacancy, so that it was put in the budget planning for a retirement that we would overhire for half a year while we planned for some vacancies that didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, and I think for me, the case with me specifically, and this kind of addresses a little bit of the concern you raised, John, is that the police were doing that work. So this is essentially a reallocation of resources so that we were actually using current police resources to do the code enforcement when those calls came in. So now the police can focus on the police, the code enforcement can focus on the code enforcement, and because that retirement didn't happen, this was essentially surplus to some extent, but the need has been there. So for me, that kind of made the business case, because I'd much rather have the police not distracted by civil complaints around code enforcement issues and let them focus on criminal enforcement or speeding laws and things of that sort versus, going out and investigating a building that's not compliant, where they don't have the expertise. And it sounds like from the job description that you provided as well, Cynthia, that was, there was a public works background, understanding of code, so they were actually having the tools to do the work. So, but I hear what you're saying a little bit in terms of that specific allocation, and I think that's what you're trying to do here through a reallocation is get the appropriate resources assigned to the need versus having that surplus head or half head.
Right, I mean, one recent example is, we received numerous complaints, and it's been going on for a couple months about an individual who's putting signs all over the city, that are, odd, I guess is the best word. Odd. And this individual, kind of stakes out corners. We had complaints about sticking out the elementary school, filming students. So that's a civil code enforcement issue. However, our patrol officers were going around the city collecting the signs because we didn't have the staff or code enforcement officer to respond to what the residents thought was a true emergency, and it was. I think from Chief Keller's perspective, we don't want our patrol officers doing civilian enforcement if we can help it. There's plenty of criminal enforcement that needs to happen in the city.
So I just want to add on that individual as well. That individual is not just going to elementary schools and being on public city property. He's actually before the holiday break actually drove onto my kid's campus in the middle of it. It is a bigger issue. I mean, that's just an example. And I think there's also been some pretty significant health, life, and safety code enforcement cases that have been coming forth that are really extensive and complex. And, simply, I think, even having some basic, somebody driving by and observing from the street, some of these things are identifiable and can potentially be taken care of. But we do have a responsibility to enforce the code, especially if we get complaints, and that has been a huge gap that I've been very concerned about for the last 6 years.
Right, we have a code enforcement issue right now regarding a pretty significant accumulation of trash and rodents in a yard. That's not a patrol issue. It's really an issue. So even if we didn't have an officer, the code enforcement issues that we have on going away. When as the city gets bigger, they become more voluminous and more frequent.
I'll go ahead and jump in and then I'll check on our other council members who haven't spoken yet. I support the reallocation. I think, it's just not something that's needed in PD, and that's why, we're not gonna use it, what can we use it for? And this is a need. I mean, the one you just mentioned was the one I was gonna bring up because we had been forwarded to council, something that I know staff is working on. It was forwarded to the mayor too. It sounds like it's been a long time going, and that's hard. And I've been, over the years, it seems like those little cases are ramping up a bit. I mean, the more people you get, right, the more problems you're gonna have that arise. And I think this kind of position would take a little bit off of multiple departments' plate because, as you mentioned, some are work, some are community development, and having staff, and then of course PD doing things that it'd be better for them to not be doing, right? Is have them drive around and pick up signs. So I like it for that reason too, that it helps all the departments. I really appreciated all the information you put together, and it was really interesting to see how differently each city handled it. And I think you picked out the best part from what you looked at. Like, for example, City of Marysville had their person has to get a background and poly because they do public safety codes, right? And so different cities combine different things. Issaquah also mentioned that their person reviews and issues special event permits, they keep pulling these little things and adding it on. North Bend, they mentioned coordinating with fire prevention personnel to enforce life safety, but I think that was because theirs was also combined with like a building official or a building inspector, so every city approaches the code enforcement position differently, so that's interesting to read through all those. And I just want to call out too, because I don't think it necessarily needs to be in the job description unless you felt it, but like Stevens, under peripheral duties, they said may attend council meetings as necessary and performs other duties as assigned, kind of that general catch-all phrase, right? But that was interesting because we may find that, this person may need to help or some kind of written report in the future if recurrent issues are coming up and maybe our code doesn't adequately, address it and we need to create a legislative solution. I think that could be something that comes up. So those are just some of the things that came up when I was reading through everything. And I'll go Councilmember Supple.
Yeah, I can go along with this agenda, Bill. I just have a question on the this is a part-time position?
It is, because we didn't want to make a new budget request or an amended budget request. Essentially wanted to use the resources we had to test the viability of this position for the remainder of the year. We think there's enough work for it, but we didn't want to add new during the budget.
Yeah, I'm just curious, are you going to be able to find someone who wants to do this part-time or?
Often it's retired police officers actually,
Okay,
who can't hire we can't hire a criminal code enforcement officer without hiring someone who is a commissioned law enforcement officer. The folks that gravitate or applicants that gravitate to these positions tend to be retired law enforcement.
and then it says the officer will report to the building official. What position is that?
We have a building official right now. It's Brian Keller, the other Brian Keller. That is not Mr.
Okay,
We have two Brian Kellers in the city. One Brian Keller is our interim chief and the other Brian Keller is our building official who reports to Laura.
oh, okay, I just wasn't familiar with that position, building official. That was an official title, I guess. Okay, thank you.
I think it's a perfectly wonderful thing, and then the police have enough to do with criminal complaints and traffic and, yeah. And sometimes you're not sure who to call. Like there was a semi parked next to Family Grocer for a while. And I had people come in going, you're a commissioner, council member, who do I talk to? I don't know. Some of these things you just don't know, so good to have some extra backup. I see it, oh, good, Director.
So just 2 cents too on. From what I understand, it is not proactive, it's completely reactive still. And I think the point person is a great notion for us, as some things are more building department related, some are more public works related, so the superintendent handle those. They have one point of contact and then you have consistency on how everybody is treated, timelines, terminologies, the face of it. Not that everybody doesn't try to do the right thing, but one person in the building department may lean in with a different edge than the public works folks are going to. A lot of the routine complaints happen to do with farm animals. Like we have a farm animal permit, pretty funny to hear it, but it's real. Chickens, they bring rats, the neighbor gets the rat, like it kind of. And it has worked well. People clean up their stuff. They understand. Most of them don't know what they don't know until they are told. So it is a kind of an education outreach position too, from our experience. But that's the bigger thing that consumes our time. Like I'll get handed something and then Brian and I talk about it. Brian is the building official. Laura will get handed something and then her and Brian and then Mike and I talk about it. Like it's just all over the place. It tears a lot of time out. I mean, we had the fences encroachment on the property by the lake. Like there's so many things that come up, which you would never really think. And there are things that just
I say this is nice because it's one person, we can take it all on, communicate with Laura, doesn't even bother me, understands where they're going with this thing, and then, you know, it's, the code needs a ton of work. I assume if we don't get all of that, that person will be participating in how that gets cleaned up, because you know, it does spell out the building official in one section, it spells out the public superintendent in another, so how we handle the community would be nice to have that person. So I think that's just, it's a messy topic. Generally, it's neighbors, howling on neighbors, and then you have the whole thing of like, well, I don't want them to know it's me. Okay, we'll do our best, like, you know, there is a paper trail, technically, you email me, you know, can explain how public information works and all that, but yeah, it's a pain, and it takes the right kind of person. Everybody's different. So consistency would be really good. And the duty of that.
Yeah, one last thing I'll add, since you just said that, Steve, was, what was it, North Bend? They specifically wrote, they're looking for someone who presents positive, friendly image to the public using tact, courtesy, and good judgment. And I think, but it seems like enough complaints would naturally roll in. I'm not sure. I think Cynthia was just making the point that there's not a shortage of work for somebody like that, but you know, if they're driving through town and they see someone building a shed on a sidewalk, okay, they might stop, right? And that would be proactive, but the idea isn't to have somebody cruising through town looking for issues, but it's gonna mostly be generated.
Yeah, and when I think about active, I think about Luke's position as the emergency management coordinator. That active educational outreach approach, not that we want to create a police state here in Duval, but that there's enough work that's based on education and outreach that we just don't have time to do that we should be doing.
Good, Councilmember.
Oh, I agree with everything everyone's saying that we need tonight. There's just 2 points I want to close with is. Every stuff on city council, we tend to do this. Something doesn't get filled, how do we spend the money somewhere else? How do we find another need and fill it with the money that we budgeted as opposed to. If there's a requirement for that, why doesn't that come with budget period? Why do we not look when we aren't able to spend money? Why don't we give it back to our taxpayers as opposed to find another way to spend it? Philosophically, I disagree with that approach. We consistently do that here. So, and the biggest concern I have is statement you made, is we're going to be proactive about finding code violations and fixing. I don't agree with that approach. If there's some way we can write something that's going to say we're going to continue to go about enforcing public complaints, as opposed to going to try to find them and, you know, give people fines and things like that, because that becomes addictive. Like, well, let's go find some more people to get more income to our city. I don't want that in the city. Those are my 2 biggest concerns. With we can convince ourselves that this is a need, but why wasn't part of the budget in the beginning? We said that 0.5 was for covering of a possible gap. That's not happening. Now let's just go spend the money somewhere else because we've identified those. We don't agree with that philosophy in government.
All right, well, so it's a good discussion. I'm hearing majority agreement with the reallocation with some dissent that's been heard. So do you have everything that you need on that?
I do.
Yeah, okay. So we'll move on to the next item, 2024 Comprehensive Plan Amendments Docket with Director Thomas. Oh, and Troy Davis, the senior thing. Talk to your back, so I'll blow through this. We appreciate our next.
So good evening, council and members of the community, if there are any on there. This is our typical annual docket process, different than our periodic comp plan process. This is the opportunity every year for our community, businesses, citizens, residents, and even large volume community come in and request changes within our comprehensive plan. We typically don't get very many, if any at all. We probably average maybe 2 or 3 a decade, honestly. Most of them come directly from staff with working with planning commission and city council. So Troy Davis is here, our senior planner, and he's going to go over this year's docket. Thank you. Troy, you're on.
Perfect. I need the host to enable sharing, please.
Should we give that a try?
Thank you. That works. Boom. All right. Well, good evening, Mayor and City Council. It's that time of year where we get to talk about amendments to the comprehensive plan. And so tonight we just kind of wanted to go over the process and the applications that we received. So what is a comprehensive plan? I think we all know, and hopefully we all know by now. Our comprehensive plan is our policy document. It basically holds the foundation to our regulations and drives the direction that we wish to go as a city. It has about a 20-year planning horizon, and we are just beginning in the beginning stages of starting our next 20-year planning horizon update of our comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plans include a number of elements, fancy word of saying chapter or topic. We have certain ones that are mandatory, and we have certain elements that are optional. And that's all defined pretty much in state law in the RCWs. We do have a couple new mandatory elements coming on, or I think at least one, and that's our climate change element. This actually isn't necessarily due to be completed until I believe 2029. But in the meantime, we can continue to work on that. It will replace, I believe, our environment and sustainability element that we have in our comp plan. So the good news is we as a city are already on track to make this change and to head this direction, since we're already done the initial work. So I imagine it'll involve a lot of work as we move on, but that element is coming down the pipe.
Great, can you hear us okay?
Barely. So.
One second, I think we're having a technical difficulty.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Troy, I'm gonna go through really quick. We can see your presentation, but it's on the sheet one. Are you? Do you
Oh,
have any?
you can't see sheet 2?
No.
Okay, hold on. Can you see it better now?
There we go. Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
Okay. I'll take it out. I took it out of presentation mode, so we're just gonna kind of wing it this way. So why do we amend our comprehensive plan? There's a number of reasons. Our comprehensive plan is a living document. It's not intended to stay stagnant and just sit on a shelf. It's intended to be looked at, used, evaluated, amended, and so forth. Things obviously change. Realities for a city change. A new direction may be desired or mandated by the state. Information in our comp plans becomes outdated, and so it's important to keep that updated. There could be errors. A rezone may be requested that requires a update to our future land use map. Periodic updates are required by the Growth Management Act, as we're beginning to dive into. Annual amendments are actually optional. There's nothing that mandates us to amend our comprehensive plan on an annual basis if we don't want to. But we do sometimes have desire to required code amendments and may also require a change in policy. So just a handful of reasons there. What's the process? So the process for amending our comprehensive plan is regulated by DMC chapter 14.72. This is actually a chapter that we're looking at updating, just to add a kind of a layer of irony, or whatever you want to call it, to help kind of clarify the process in the future. So it is on our plan schedule to get that taken care of down the road. But anyway, annual amendments can take about 12 months to process. It can be processed sooner if we get through the docketing process, on a quicker schedule based, pretty much based on staff time. If we have a very busy year, it can kind of stretch out to the 12-month mark, but usually 9 months is a pretty nice time period to get that taken care of. Periodic updates, which, like I mentioned, that we're working on, that occur once every 8 to 10 years, take 12 to 18 months to accomplish. And that's just a huge update of our comprehensive plan, where we're not just doing little tweaks here and there, we're doing a complete update and overhaul. So we have 8 major steps in the process. What is the process for amending our comprehensive plan? So these major steps include setting up a application window. And so this year we had set it up usually in around September and keep it open for the entirety of fall. We evaluate these applications for conformance with certain criteria listed in 1472. Then we introduce these items to the Planning Commission and City Council, which we're doing right now. We introduced the application we received to the Planning Commission on the 10th last week. Commission makes a recommendation to the City Council, so we anticipate that happening at the Planning Commission's 24th meeting, and then we'll bring that to the council. And then the council establishes the final annual docket. The final annual docket's not approval of those docket applications, it's simply saying we concur that these meet certain basic criteria, and we're going to go ahead and have staff process these applications further throughout the year. So then later on, once we get through kind of the process of processing those applications, we hold public hearings with the Planning Commission and City Council. And then City Council makes a final decision after they receive the Planning Commission recommendation and make a final decision on those proposed amendments. So who can propose amendments? Any interested party. It can be an individual, agency, special interest group, etc. Here in the city, our staff, we pretty much are the #1 application submitters for proposed amendments. It's not often we receive them from the public, but sometimes we do, and sometimes we receive it from other agencies as well. And again, based on the Growth Management Act, we can only amend our comprehensive plan once per year. And that's so that we can ascertain the collective impact of what those proposed amendments are concurrently. And that gives a little bit of order to things. If we just processed amendments as they came in willy-nilly, we could create problems. So this state requirement kind of helps create a smoother, more cohesive process to amending our comp plan. And so the docketing process is what we use. And so by establishing the docketing process, we take those applications and again, decide on which ones we're going to work on and then move forward. So in terms of application or proposed amendments that we received for 2024, as I mentioned, our application window was open from September through December. We didn't receive any applications outside of the city. We just have our one city initiated application, which is a proposed amendment to our comprehensive plan regarding our 2024 periodic update. So it's just kind of a double layering, it kind of seems, but this way we ensure that we are amending our comprehensive plan in accordance with our docket. So as I mentioned, at our next Planning Commission meeting on the 24th, we'll ask the Planning Commission to make a recommendation to the City Council on the final docket. And then we'll bring that forward to City Council to make a decision on establishing the final docket for 2024. So any questions?
Clerk, if you could just let me know if you do see a hand come up on the virtual council members. I'm not seeing any hands.
I don't see any hands.
No questions, I guess. Thank you
Okay.
for,
Thank you.
have a good night.
You too.
All right, so with that, we'll move on to Agenda Bill 2404, discussion on the 2024 legislative priorities with City Administrator McDonough.
Yes, so this is on the agenda, just so that we can, at the next meeting, finalize our 2024 legislative priorities. So just a reminder, if anybody has anything, I put in the packet our legislative priorities from 2023. So between now and, I would say, let me look at my calendar, by the 25th of January, if anybody can get myself and the mayor any additional feedback that you would like included in 2024. The hope would be to turn that feedback around and then put it potentially on consent for the February 6th meeting. When we do our legislative priorities, we also kind of by fiat, also approve the AWC legislative priorities, which I also put in the packet. We don't have final Sound City legislative priorities yet for 2024. They're in draft form, but if I get them between now and the next meeting, I'll certainly put the Sound City legislative priorities in as well. If we also adopt kind of by consent.
Go ahead, Councilmember Schaefer.
The ones in the packet were all able to see them, so correct.
Oh, did I not include the
Not
last?
in this one, but I think it was
You're in the last.
in the last packet, but it didn't get in this one.
Okay. And I believe we did the 2023 priorities at the beginning of the year last year, if we go back and look for our legislative priorities for 23.
All right.
It's very good.
All right.
Prior to the legislative session being complete,
Yeah.
maybe if I wanted to email our elected representatives,
Mhm.
our priorities, I could.
Yeah, and I imagine they won't really change much from last year, but,
Certainly from the AWC's perspective, and I think we share this as one of our top priorities, is the hiring of qualified public safety officers.
Yeah.
Listed as AWC #1 priority, and I think we share that priority across the state of ensuring that the state jurisdiction, county jurisdiction really prioritize public safety.
all right, so with that, we'll move on to our last discussion item, which is Agenda Bill 2405. It's a report from the Economic Development Subcommittee. And this will be on the consent agenda tonight, so this is a chance to start to get into it a little bit, and myself and Councilmember Schaefer will walk you through. Just make sure and pull that up and look at that agenda bill as well, so you can have a little more detail. And our clerk's just gonna, are you gonna share that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just threw together a super quick PowerPoint. Help guide us through. And then if we end up, I don't know how much time we'll end up with, then maybe we can take care of some reports if we have extra time. All right. So you can go to the next slide.
Sorry.
Our Economic Development Committee is Councilmember Schaefer, myself, and Councilmember Napoli. Perfect, thank you. So the city council had asked our committee to look at grant applications and project opportunities. If you recall, in the 23-24 budget, we set aside a rather large sum of money for economic development. And so there are kind of 8 big things we looked at. Summer stage, investing in that. So that's pretty much new banners, A-boards, things like that. The Big Rock Road banner poles. I think the final location is kind of close down by Safeway parking lot and in between Safeway and Starbucks, sort of in that kind of area, I think is what I remember. And that's just, you know, I'm really excited about that one because I know council's really talked about that one for a while, and it's just expanding that the visual appeal with like community event information on, so it's not just Main Street anymore. And recognizing Big Rock Road is one of those main areas people travel in and out of. Electronic vehicle charging station infrastructure, and then economic development and tourism grants for last year, 2023. And then a summer music crawl series pilot program. So just bringing different music artists to different venues, a hanging flower basket program to beautify the downtown, economic development tourism grants for this year, 2024. And we're estimated to have around 50,000-ish left after we go through everything we're talking about here. And then the purchase of a new golf cart or side-by-side. And this would help with the flower program so that they could have equipment to water. But if I heard correctly, our current one that we use to transport people down to summer stage, people who need a little extra assistance, is not doing so well. And so this wouldn't just be for the flower program. So we pulled that out of the flower program to make it clear that this is something that I think the city needs no matter what, and we see it as a big economic development grant. And then if you go to the next slide, please. This was a breakdown. It's in your agenda bill, so you can look at it as well, but that gives you ideas of the numbers. And then what I did, Councilmember Schaefer, is the next slide. I don't know if we want to go through anything on that, but that was to put the numbers somewhere in the slide deck, so we can go back and have it up on the screen if we need to. I think for 3 out of those 8 that maybe need a little more context, a little more detail to talk about. Of course, we can talk about any of them in Cal, but specifically the electronic vehicle charging station infrastructure. I kind of threw in a fun thing. I've been reading the White House had released a briefing on like December 11th, and they were urging investment in the electronic vehicle market by increasing charging accessibility, and how it's kind of like a chicken and egg situation, right? Where some people may hesitate to buy an EV because of the infrastructure not quite being there, or the vice versa. Anyways, so you know, Duval is kind of seen as a very artistic community, really sustainable, in touch with nature and agriculture. And I think that lends itself to eco-friendly consumers who are more likely to visit if we have EV charging stations available. And then this investment, I think the main point to flag here is the money that we talk about for this is for the infrastructure to allow either the city to purchase and deploy units, or to have a third party come in and manage units. This the money for this would not be to actually buy the units, it's to improve the infrastructure down there to be able to receive. So that's one call out there. The hanging flower box, oh, sorry, go ahead.
And I think it's worth noting that this is a change from the last time council may have discussed EV charging stations, which was put it on private property and then take the parking lot. And this is to create the infrastructure of the park and ride, which is a publicly accessible space.
Yeah.
So slightly different purpose than the last time council spoke about this project.
Yeah, thank you for that. I actually, Fred, it's been a long time since we've talked about this at council. So I'm just going through these kind of quickly, but then we can stop and talk about it, or.
Yeah, I just want to, you know, step back and take a look at the big picture. And the reason we're doing this is really to generate, revenue for our businesses, and in turn generate revenue for our city. So how does the EV charging station do that? It's probably pretty obvious, right? We attract people that maybe wouldn't have stopped here otherwise. In fact, likely would not have stopped here otherwise. The charging stations, Steve, I don't know, we're talking an hour or so to charge
Well, they're 2 to 4 hours.
yeah. And by, you know, somebody using the station for that time, well, they're probably not going to sit in their cars, right? They're going to get out, they're going to look around town, you know, very likely spend money in town. The other thing that's very attractive to me about this is the fact that it's at the north end of town, which is, you know, been, you know, neglect is not the right word, but it doesn't get as much traffic as the main part of downtown. So it will attract more people to that north end and the businesses we have up there as well.
Do you guys want to just kind of quickly go through these 3, and then after that, it's pretty much, and then go back and discuss in depth, or do you want to kind of go one by one? Does it matter to anyone? Okay, I'll just jump in and see if I can. Okay, go ahead, Mayor.
I was just gonna, reiterate concern again about spending a large sum on an event, a vehicle charging station with city funds. Part of the reason being $50,000, we're not gonna recoup that by one single charging station economically in the city, during its lifespan. Second of all, what happens in other areas, and is likely to happen here, is that you will have residents going and using that, and the city subsidizing people's personal EV vehicles, in the power. Third of all, is that, it's very difficult to figure out how much to actually charge for that charging. There are issues in jurisdictions throughout the state, with, you know, definitely challenges with public-owned EV stations that are accessible to the public, but are not just for city vehicles. So I think, I would request that the council do a little more research and consideration on that, because that is a huge sum of money. With, very good intentions, but little, if any, actual, discernible economic benefit.
Thank Director Winchester.
Good, Director.
And yeah, to elaborate just a little on that proposed cost, that is to upgrade the electrical service on the property to be providing for stubs that we are not recommending we own. We would provide those for a third party to own a charging unit as well as handle the payment receipt for charging those vehicles at that site. So that number, to be clear, is to upgrade the infrastructure on the premise so that it can serve level 2 charging station. And that is to upgrade the service cabinet and the transformer, provide conduit and studs to locations down on the inner ring, kind of by the one light pole, and that would be for 4. It's 2 double level 2 is what's proposed. So we have to.
So four plugs.
Mhm.
Okay.
Because if you put one in, you get a double, and that transformer setup, the next upgrade, it needs an upgrade no matter what. That size can facilitate 2 of those level 2s for 4.
Councilmember Marshall.
So sort of 2 follow-up questions, and only because it wasn't in depth here is one is that is a, I think to the mayor's point, sort of a city outlay investment. That's assuming no matching funds, grant proposals, so there may, I assume there potentially could be some offset, may or may not, but this is assuming that there's no assistance from other sources in terms of funding that. And then I think my follow-up was to Director Lynn Shefke's perspective, and I know this is my experience with my employer, is that electricity is not provided by free, you have a card or whatnot, it's charged. And there's usually a profit sharing agreement with the provider, so I'm also assuming there would be some revenue back to the city. It may not offset the full cost, but between those two, I just wanted to clarify, like, that's the high end, but they're potentially looked at in the aggregate, both with revenue recovery and then potentially some alternate ways to fund that investment. It might be below 50,000. I don't know how in-depth you did with your analysis, but.
We didn't really get into the specifics of the unit. This is just upgrading it to be able to receive them. And then I think that's another conversation, but I mean, it is important to talk about it a little bit if we're going one way or another, because that might really change whether or not we want to do this, but I would, City Administrator McNabb, I'm trying to remember, I know there's a lot of grants for EV charging stations, but it seems like maybe, is it more about getting the actual unit, or are there some out there to help us create?
Both. There are grant opportunities for infrastructure upgrade. As part of this project, we haven't done a deep dive of all of the ways we might get offset or recoup funding for this, but, you know, so I would say that if we now have, we just finished getting engineering updates and some estimate of what the cost would be to improve our infrastructure last week, I think, for Carolyn. So we now have a shovel-ready project that we could seek grant recoupment from, whereas before it was more of a concept, like, what if we put EV charging stations in one city? Well, now we can put them here. We know how much it'll cost to upgrade the infrastructure to do it, so we have more of an opportunity to reach out for grant funding than we did 2 weeks ago.
And then one clarifying, kind of part of the same question. The Park and Ride lot I know is done in conjunction with the county. Is there any opportunity to also partner with King County? It's city-owned property, but the program there in terms of the users of that lot are residents leveraging community owned. And again, this is another way to take people off the, well, not necessarily take people off the road, but part of their broader sustainability. So that's another, you know, it'd be great if there was an opportunity to do something.
Director Good.
So yes and no, they're not obligated to do anything for us in the future. However, we are on the, I would call it a consortium. So the county put out a call kind of city or countywide on anybody who's interested in a grant program for electronic charging stations. So we did apply with them. So they have our information. There's no guarantee that they are gonna fund us or any of these projects, but they're looking to fund a bulk of them. And they do want a network countywide, they would like it spread all over the place, so. I think it's reasonable, so Ben has some of that paperwork submitted in, but yeah, that's. We're looking elsewhere.
Councilmember Isaacson?
I think you said the majority of what I was gonna say as well, but I just wanted to dovetail and add to it is when we bring in a commercial investment, is a plan to say there would be a upfront fee or charge to help recoup some of that investment that we did in infrastructure, or would it only be based on revenue?
So for some of those. Third-party providers, PSD is one of them. The bulk of the ones I've seen don't necessarily give us anything up front. However, they take the maintenance obligation on of those charging stands for their life cycle. So it's all out of our hands. Which, you know, every time I'd have to get an electrician down there, it'd be minimum $1,000. So I think it's probably reasonable that they're full service provided by that third party provider, that we don't touch them, we don't own them, we don't want to be with them. And I don't know about the rate revenue return on per minute charge, but something to look at.
So that's, I think that's. Ron, I was kind of sorry, where is that return on investment in the mayor expressed as well? Like, we don't have a plan for a fee coming in. I get what you're saying, maintaining, that's a business, that's what I would do as a business too. Hey, we'll put this thing in, but I maintain it for you. I mean, that's kind of a wash, that would be a base assumption and probably want to do it if they didn't. I don't know how I would compare that to a savings for us, I would just say, we spent $50,000. How are we going to get that $50,000 back? With some subjective, if you will, assessment of where we think the businesses are gonna make more money. Because they're already revenue from that as well, the city. That's all I'm thinking, but I'm a bit concerned about the large investment. He's not some, return on investment of 50%.
So since this is on the, what is that record?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. There was something that went back next time.
Just to add a little bit to this conversation, as we are in the better charging station, doesn't when you look at a map. So it is good to start to see us move on that, but we also have our new development. And they meet certain conditions, whether it's a new commercial mixed use building or even residential, we now are required by the state mandate to require EV stations. So we'll start to see EV stations in our new non-residential projects and even in some of our multi-family projects. So I just wanted you to know that. And that's a very large investment for a developer.
So I just wanted to throw out that since this is on consent agenda, I want to make sure I'm taking some notes, because if, I know right now there's a number attached to it on the agenda. And so if the direction from council is that we love this idea, but we don't want to pay that price tag, and so we want to go out and try to get as many grants and see where that ends up. I just want you guys to keep that in mind, because it is on consent. So if you approve this as is, you'd be saying we're wanting to spend up to the price tag that's currently listed in the agenda before. So just keep that in mind, because we'll need to pull it and amend it and if you go from there. Should we move on to, I'll just go through a few highlights of the hanging flower basket. So these are just, like I said, 3 to 8 that I think need a little more context than what is maybe in the agenda bill, or a little more discussion. The committee had a lot of conversation. Director Lynn Fusky put together a ton of stuff for us, which was amazing. And so, we like the idea of purchasing or partnering with somebody rather than staff in-house making flower baskets, especially since there's people that do that stuff all the time, and it might be quicker and cheaper in the long run. Councilmember Naplin had met with somebody in high school with their program, and then our city administrator reminded us too that we do have to follow our purchasing policy. So while we may want to give preference to a youth program or something like that, we still need to go out and get a couple other estimates. And Councilmember Naplin had also spoken with somebody at East Hardware that they got directed there from the high school, oh, you should go talk to this person. So it was follow the rabbit trail. And they were even offering to sell them to us at cost. with the flowers and all that. So there's a lot of really good information that came out of some of those meetings that we can follow up with. I think that what Steve had initially put together was there's 18 polls, and in between, if you look at your agenda bill, there's more details in that. I didn't put this on the slide, but I think it's 9 polls on each side, and I can't remember the streets that it's between, I'm sure Steve does, but it's basically the main downtown area. First year cost, of course, is gonna be higher than each ongoing year, because the first year you'd be buying brackets, you'd be buying all these different things that you couldn't be buying in the subsequent years. And so, you know, my thing was, for me, that's the max that I was willing to commit to, was the 18 polls. And then I know you spoke about double baskets, and my thing was that, well, I don't wanna do 5 single bracket basket hangers, and then we're like, wow, this is amazing, I wish we would have, you know, and then have to go buy the new kind. So I'm also interested in other uses for the pole brackets, not this year or next year, but, you know, just something to think about is other, you know, people can hang smaller banners, or maybe there's seasonal decoration, again, not to consider right now, but just in the long run, if there's a certain kind of pole bracket, that would have multi-use. And yeah, I don't know, Rick, what do you want to add to the flower basket program? And you guys, again, you can look at your agenda bill. It's all broken down.
You know, one of the things we need to realize is it's actually not the number of baskets that are contributing to the cost, especially the first year costs. They're a relatively small percentage of that total cost. The big things are the side by side. That's an obvious one, and the you know, and the additional summer help we need to maintain these. Those are actually the big two ticket items, and like you said, the first year, also the brackets and the installation of the brackets and all that. But as far as ongoing costs, we still have to have the summer help. We still have to maintain our side by side, and obviously new flowers on a yearly basis. And this is, you know, this is another program that, I mean, with anything we're talking about on this list, these 3 or the other items, there's no guarantee of payback. These are investments, much like we invest in a stock on the stock market, and we try to invest wisely, and we certainly expect a return on these, but there's no guarantee. So these are trials, if you will, and we are going to follow up very carefully on them to make sure that we actually got some bang for the buck out of it. But I think these are all reasonable items to start with, and potentially expand as we go forward.
No, and then I'll turn it over to the people who want to speak. Oh shoot, what was I going with that? No, I got it. So with like this and the music hall, thinking of it more, we may need to continue the program, continue funding it. However, a lot of other cities do have some kind of sponsorship or other things. But obviously that would be way too much to kind of get up and running, and we may put them up and see them, or people like, can you put up these flower baskets? I doubt that. I think everyone would love them, but the idea would be to work towards how do you sustain that, and I think that people would want to sponsor them and they really like them. So I'll go Councilmember Kuzbelt and then.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, I'm hoping that we are looking at very tolerant, drought and heat tolerant plants put in there, so that we're not just watering the hell out of them and they're, drying out and dying because they're surrounded by concrete. Hard surfaces, because that takes a lot out of the plant. And also, I did talk to Liz at True Valley a little bit, and she said that, Matt reminded her that they forgot to include the cost of the bracket in that estimate, and the brackets are gonna need to support a weight of at least 35, possibly 50 pounds each, and those are gonna run at cost between $30 and $40.
Well, I answered that question really quick. Director Laniszewski had the brackets in his estimate, so we weren't coming. Okay. But then to answer your other question, the teacher at the high school had mentioned you know, they helped put together baskets, they would only pick things that didn't need to be redheaded, and were drawing. I just want to answer that.
And certainly like Ace had some good recommendations
Yeah.
as well.
They work really well together. Thank you, Councilmember Richter.
Yes, you touched on some of my questions, but there are various things in terms of how you build a basket, the media that's used, other things that is water retentive as well as you want to select plants that are drought tolerant, but also highly colorful. There's a lot of times, you know, the vanilla beige is the one that's the most drought tolerant. But it was, really a question around and it may just be negligible. For the side by side, is there any additional equipment in terms of like a spray tank mount that would need to be, that is or is not included? And then is there any, you know, the cost of the water itself or fertilizer, is that negligible based on the 18 holes, or, you know, over the course of the summer, does that have some cost? It's not included in here.
You want to take that on?
So yeah, there is a little water tanker. We do expect to water fairly routinely, no matter what is in them. Right? Good media, is gonna be helpful, however, depending on weather, in air, above ground, or air moving, like, they dry out fast. We all know, put them in our own house, you don't water them every day, they turn south fast, and they're hard to get back. That's why I have a dripper in, because I can never get the water in. So, and then of course my wife asked, why are you putting a dripper in? And I'm like, well, it's not water in Old Town, you know, every 50 feet. So it's just something that is there. So yes, the cost of the small, I can't remember what size it is, it's all in the committee, but we have a small little tow behind. We do have a small little side by side. Other agencies use trucks and, you know, 400-gallon tank on the back. This has to be on sidewalk. We don't expect to be able to pull a truck up, water a pot every time at every stand going down Main Street with parking. It's just not gonna happen. So we figured we need to be on the sidewalk. We are planning for that halftime person to take care of those. You know, we looked at a few things, you know, Talking Monroe. Fort Collins, one of my favorite places. They have an amazing flower program in their downtown center. It's crazy. Like, a whole team of people just maintains it. No matter how hard they try to keep, you know, drought tolerant. Like you said, the favorite color of drought tolerant is beige. So I don't think we want little grass people and all our pump grasses and things that are nice and hardy, but yeah, so it's all like that. Again, we're just trying to help answer questions that were asked of us. For the most part, double brackets are in there. Yes, they hold whatever it was. I think it was up to 110 pounds for a double. So things that were fairly reasonable, fairly off the shelf. If they want to expand the program, or a bracket breaks, things we can get routinely after the fact that look the same. That was the goal. You know, soil, materials, everything, you know, only, I do concur that water is probably the only item that is the absorb cost. So.
Councilmember Isaacson?
So I'm looking at this and see what the estimate is, like a little over 15,000 a year to maintain it. That's what I'm seeing on here, right?
Yeah, I put a little table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little table at the bottom, just to get some increase over time, inflation, whatever, just to be understanding.
Yeah, to the on the right hand side of the box. So. But there's no plan, we talked about it, there isn't a plan, but is to try to get investment from the community to offset or sponsorships or like that, so. Yeah, I hate to be it's like the last company that we couldn't even approve like a $10,000 or $15,000 give back money to our citizens on sewer tax. Now we're gonna vote to commit ourselves to $17,000 a year for power taxes. And I agree, it's like stock market, you don't know where the return is, but like, I don't like the idea of spending the money without at least some plan and trying to get other people to commit to it. It's a hard thing to quantify, I agree with you. But it's just hard to sit here and say, we voted 2 councilmen meetings ago to say no to $10,000 or $15,000 back to our citizens that we could have. And but we're gonna say, listen, try to sign us up for $17,000 a year, potentially. If people like it.
Other questions or comments? Oh, sorry.
It's just a thought on, you know, partnering, fundraising, revenue sharing, whatever you want to call it. QR code donation program, I mean, is that something we're talk about too? You know, if you're interested, call here or click here, QR code, donate. You know, it's pretty surprising. One time I remember there years ago, oh, keep Summer Save going and QR code walk around. I don't know, great, that was pretty good fun. There is that potential.
I think sometimes it helps to see it,
Yeah.
so I mean, doing it 1 year. And I mean, I don't expect that to end up in next year's budget per se, unless, I don't know. So that's, with all of these things, it's trying to help with economic development in the community and start something. But then do we need to keep funding it, or is it trying to get it rolling on its own? And those are things that we can work on, but sometimes you just need to try it and see how it works. And then it's easier to get people to buy into it. But that's just one. Did I see it again or no?
I did raise my hand, but I will share that Councilmember Naplin has done a fair amount of research of other jurisdictions who've done this work, and there are some pretty robust sponsorship programs out there that either can be centered around a holiday like Mother's Day or just community-based sponsorship. So there are models out there for making this project a little more self-sustaining. We did look at it for this year because Mayor, for this point, people don't know, they haven't seen it to see if it would be successful. And frankly, we don't know if it's going to be successful. But Councilmember Naplin had done, I think, a pretty robust amount of research on how to make them more successful.
And I would just say, specifically to music, fundraising has been a core component of Summer Stage. And pre-COVID, there were plans to drastically expand the fundraising efforts for Summer Stage in our music programming. However, partially due to COVID, and partially due to lack of staffing, that was never able to come to fruition. So I think it's another reiteration of how important it is to make sure that we make some of these limited term positions, including our community events coordinator, full-time and permanent, to provide that opportunity and space for fundraising and making some of our programs self-sustaining. Because without that staffing, we will be throwing money into a pit that we're not going to get back. There is the 1 year, see if people like it, but that commitment has to be there if people like it, to support the staffing necessary to keep it going and raise that revenue, so that we're not taking money from our police department and our core programs and the core functions of government. We still don't have our, we will be getting there within the next year and a half, but we still don't have our municipal financial plan. So adding continuing ongoing costs when we don't know what the future holds and what steps we're going to need to take to have a sustainable, resilient budget over the long term once our massive housing growth stops. I think that I just continue to reiterate to be cognizant of it, having developed the budget, intimately for the last 6 years, and knowing previous to that how strapped the city was, that we in 2018 had fewer staff than we had the day after layoffs in 2008, the big recession. And we already are still struggling in staffing level, even though we've added significantly to do the basic operations of government, and just to keep that in mind as well. And this is all great ideas, lots of great stuff. And I'm not trying to be a party pooper, but I'm also trying to make sure that we have some levity and broad, deep conversation about the overall impact that some of these have.
Great. Oh, Councilmember.
Just a final comment, and only because I know that you did some outreach to the chamber to come up with these initial set of ideas. I think the other part, or the expectation I would have is, if there's an ROI, there's a benefit that the downtown, particularly Old Town, where we're making some of these investments, sees a tangible return, even if it's, marginal, that the chamber would also be interested in whether it's evangelizing, partnering, even communicating the investments we're making, in terms of their business, so doesn't directly address the mayor's concern, but, they have skin in the game in terms of if it's net benefit, finding ways to sort of partner to keep some of these, even if it's just helping line up sponsors. So, I would look to shift all this burden to staff, particularly if some of this is the result of input. The last thing I just want to close on, because I know we'll talk about this more in the actual city council meeting, is I think to your earlier point, Amy, that some of these we did some initial approval in terms of what the investments are. Seems to be some questions in terms of how we allocate. And I don't know what the best mechanism, so when we have the discussion, whether that is doing some set asides or talking about phasing, or what I don't want to do is sort of offset, because I know some of these have some runway to get started to hit the timing that we schedule, but it also sounds like some of them are a little, could use a little more investigation in terms of the actual, particularly PED, which I think was the biggest. That's probably, the one sounds like there's some other opportunities, we just don't know what they all are yet. The others, I think we talked about the five, and we've been here for a while, and it's very, something almost as expected now in sort of a small town in summer, so it's nothing else but addressing the gap where some of the other cities in similar size have visited for the summer months.
Well, I will go ahead and jump into the last item that I thought needed a little more context than, just the path to an agenda bill. But just so you know, I thought I might have saw Morgan Henley come in, but we probably wouldn't have time for questions in here anyways, but he will be presenting at our council. You're here, I know, I'm excited for you. Well, they're seating back there, if you want to come sit. Like I said, I don't think we'll have time during house, but if there was a really specific question, Morgan is here. But he has a chance to present to us at the city council meeting as well, so you'll get to hear a little more about this, but just high level, I would say Councilmember Schaefer did a ton of work bringing this forward and meeting with Morgan and getting more information. And from those conversations, the committee recommends $20,000 funding toward the summer 2024 program for the music hall series. And then also similar to the other things that, this and same with Summer Stage, right? Like this is something where sponsorship could be huge. Is that something that you can expect the first year when you haven't even done it before? Probably not. But that's something that this is seed money, and we think it'd be a really great program. And yeah, I don't know, Rick, do you want to add to that? I kind of did minimal bullets there.
No, that's perfect. This is an idea that Morgan came to me some number of months ago, maybe a year ago. I don't even remember. Based on his experience with Summer Stage, music festivals in other cities up and down the valley. As most of you know, Morgan is the producer for many of those events, and personally knows a lot of the bands and has relationships with them. To me, this is a perfect opportunity to get something going in Evolve that'll put a brand on Evolve. A brand being, hey, it's a fun family kind of place to come on a Saturday with literally music in the streets, up and down Main Street. With all of these, there's a certain amount of herbs, especially with the flowers and the summer music club. We really don't have much time to talk about them much more if we want to get something done by this summer. Morgan is constrained on scheduling bands. He needs to start doing that right now. Hanging flowers, all of that's going to take time. Pre-order stuff, get the work done as far as putting it together and side by side and things like that. So, my concern is if we want to talk about this more, we are going to miss this summer. So council needs to understand there's a price to be paid there. I would even argue the same thing goes to the EV charging station, go to lesser extent. But again, developing, building on the brand of Duval. I'd like to get some, public charging stations into Duval. So people would feel comfortable coming here with their EV, vehicles, knowing that if they need it, they can get a charge here and enjoy it. So we need to keep, like I say, keep all this in mind as we, as we look at this. I guess it's in the consent agenda.
I think we maybe need to pull it to have a little more discussion or give a chance for amendments to change it.
Yeah, or piecemeal.
Clerk, would you mind? I think the last one just was questions. Yeah, there we go. So, I guess, was there any more comment discussion? We just started on music crawl, but like, if you're gonna hear more about it, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just, I know I've been the biggest thing there in a couple weeks. And Rick, what I'll share with you is I'm willing to push the agenda forward with some amendments today. And some very broad amendments along the lines of the baskets and the EV with something that we can say the plan is a one-time with the ultimate plan is the city will look into outside sources of funding to. I don't want to commit the city. I agree with you. I agree with the idea of the best. I love the town of Alton singing. But I look at the other things that we keep saying, staff and all these things that we don't have money to do that we keep putting off. There's a return on investment that we need. I agree with doing the initial investment. What I don't agree with is signing up the city for this paying investment until we can get some kind of objectionable or subjectional input that it's doing good for the city. That's what I would capture in the city council to vote on to move forward. That's just, I think, the responsible thing to do. It's not just, hey, the town's good, let's do it. Let's do it, but with a caveat to it, to hold us accountable for the taxpayers' money that we're about to spend. If it's been spent somewhere else, then we know it's a good investment.
Yeah, and I would say I see she is joined virtually, Councilmember Naplan, but not to speak for her, but something she has said in our committee was, she just wanted to make sure that council did understand that these proposals are not expected to be a recurring budget item unless somehow miraculously, with all of our other parking lot items, like you were talking about, how can we justify this when we don't have enough of that or whatever. We do always have those things that don't make it into the budget, but are really important and they're right off in the wings. And then just to remind council too, we were given the task, there's a chunk of money allocated for economic development. So this is what we came up with. And we can work through it and try to get what we can passed and greenlit to go. But I would say we're running out of time, like Rick said. So if there are other ideas, or we might have to look into reallocating that money, we can't spend it within the year. So just want to remind everybody that. Councilmember Patel?
I was just gonna say, as far as I'm in a complete agreement for the music and the flowers. But as far as the EV, I'm with the mayor, if we can find grants for it to help supplement it instead of that initial outlay. I don't want to commit to that initial outlay.
Yeah, we could.
I think we can definitely get that just seems.
I think we could figure out some wording for that to see, like, if that was the hang up for the majority of council, and I don't know, that's one thought. In terms of spending the money, I mean, we have the money to spend, so that was one of the things. But of course, if we can get grants, then we can use that for something else. But I don't know time-wise what staff has to devote to that, but I understand that and understand as well.
What I would say is Director Lenishevsky and his team are amazing at getting grants and learning about grant opportunities, and they're very quick to apply, which, we've already applied for one that could cover the cost for the EV charging stations. We know there's a lot of others out there. We just didn't have the information that we need to put together a really good middle. We have more now. I certainly don't want to commit Director Lenishevsky or his team to grant work that hasn't already been anticipated. As we've been sitting here, we learn about other grants. Maybe one further up. There's a lot that comes across our desk. And I will say that everyone that we can apply to that we think will bring revenue into the city to cover a planned project, that team is on it.
Councilmember.
I think this will be my last comment, but the other part is, and I do think that project is a little different than the others. A couple of thoughts. One is, as a council, we did approve this year $250,000, so we're not talking about new funding. We agreed that economic development. I haven't heard any other projects that sort of supersede some of these under that umbrella. So I think I'm fine with the budget projects, but based on what Director Thomas said, I was not aware of sort of the change in state code. There is some other avenues. I think the big question mark is, you know, how quickly will that happen? When will the projects land? But this also doesn't seem, the EV stations, there's a gap in the valley, but it's also not, as time dependent as the other. So I think the other part would be essentially put a pin in it. There sounds like there's council interest in the EV proposal, explore alternate funding methods. It doesn't preclude really allocating, because we're essentially, this is a tentative list of projects, and you could come back to the council, or we could decide at a later date. But from my perspective, that just wouldn't be the priority. If I was asked to staff rank this list, that EV station would be down lower, subject to other, you know, exploring other opportunities. If that is determined to be best use and we don't have projects in the wings, then maybe we move forward, but it also doesn't sound like it's as pressing as like the music and the summer flower program, which are more time sensitive.
First, would you mind going back just 2 slides, sorry, just to that, thing. Yeah, 2, there we go, perfect. So with the estimates lined up right now, that's where we're at, the total wise. So they all do fit in the bucket, including leaving money for this year, with the economic grant that we did some for last year. So, just something to think about. If there are other ideas that we want to use that money for, we would just need to know really soon, because we'd have to need to discuss it again, or maybe it just I don't know if council would rather it come out of the committee at that point and just we all talk about it if it comes up. I don't know what staff would need on the EV thing though, in terms of wording, like, is it, you know, I just don't know how to go forward with that. So like, if we were to green like a certain amount of money, maybe 50 is too much. Or, you know what I mean? And, or we just want them to even see if we could get one, but I don't know if they have time and how many they have time to apply for. Because I agree, anytime we can get a grant for something, 100%, please, because we could put the money to good use or reallocate it if we just can't find an economic development purpose for it, you know? So, just some thoughts. I think we just need to figure out, would we fully pull that out of the agenda bill? And we can talk about this in council, because we'll have to take this off consent, but those are the things to think about. Like, what would we do with that then? Do we just fully pin it, pause it, and we don't do anything with it? Or do we ask for that to be done to see if we can apply for some grants? And a lot of times with grants, there's a matching part too, where they want you to put in a certain amount. They're not gonna give you full, but I don't know if EV is different than that, because it's pretty hot item right now.
So I will defer to Director Lanchewski, but I don't think, based on what the staff end of that project is for the EV charge stations, which is create the infrastructure to do it, assigning like half, like 25,000 is effectively nothing. Because the cost is the cost of building the infrastructure, we can't discount that. It's based on an engineering estimate of what it would take to get electricity out there to have charging stations. So, just kind of in terms of managing expectations around, well, what if we only did 25,000? That's effectively not a project from a staff perspective.
Yeah, so I guess for me, my preference is to keep it at the estimate is that, and with like a cliff note of knowing that staff would try to get grants, but then if they can't, discount comfortable with that money being spent off of that purpose. That's where my opinion lies. I don't know if everybody else.
What's the time frame that we expect to hear back?
Yeah, I was messaging, we were supposed to get the report Friday, we did not, so we're waiting on our.
Okay. Okay.
So, you know, I can certainly preface, so you guys can preface it any way you want. Even if you extract the one to come back on its own. We're here all the time, it's not like it's a big deal. Or a memo could go in the packet if I wasn't here, something. Not a huge burden. So I do think it's an interesting time. All the statistics you see on electric cars are just crazy to me, like 25% of people who don't have any to charge about crazy. And the infrastructure there, you saw the messages through PSC all weekend. Like, our system is burdened. The revenues, as we were looking when we, finalized the budget for this year, like the revenues for electric tax coming in way ahead of estimate. And this has to be charging cars. It is not proportionate to the growth rate. It's not proportionate to that housing unit. It is way above those numbers. So that's even more further proven with PSC pulling all the right of way permits to do all the work on the infrastructure in town. We've been telling them for years, you need to upgrade your infrastructure, but now they're like, no. We do not have. And I think EV cars, even though people, I don't know how much to joke or not, like, oh yeah, I don't pay to drive my car, well, what do you do? We can see the reflection of that in the use tax for electricity. So there's a lot of that. So it's neither here nor there, but it's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
Something we can come back for.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I propose, that we, pull the EV charging off from the consent agenda for tonight, not to deallocate that money, but to actually wait until, Steve hears back, for one thing, and, make a decision, later, hopefully not too much later, on what we want to do with this. But for tonight, based on this discussion, I think we could focus, and, and, vote.
We could do that, yeah, motion.
I think we actually have to pull the full agenda off consent. It'll become an item on the agenda and then we can amend it. And we would amend it by, if somebody wants to move,
There we go.
I mean, again, because then maybe we can just go through and figure out a way to. I think everyone's probably okay with most of it, but then if there are sticking points, I don't know. I mean, that would depend on the majority for the amendment, because the majority might find leaving it in as is, knowing it's staff grant. And if they can't, we're willing to stay it out of this month. It's just gonna come down to. So we'll just have to. Under additions and corrections, somebody will move to remove that item from.
Okay,
The
so
whole
we
agenda.
wait, so we go to get to consent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So if I motion to remove it, with the plan, we just move it to action later on.
Pull it up from consent.
But I'll do that.
And- So with that, I'm gonna go ahead, so we have a few minutes break. Before the council meeting, I'll go ahead and adjourn the cow at 6:50. Thanks. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.